All right, and we are live. So, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us for a kind of surprise movie club. Initially, I think the plan was to not have it this month. Um, but then I was informed that Beckett really wanted it. um, so we're actually having it on July 1st, which is very unusual for it. And I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not expecting anybody else to really join us on this one because it's a surprise. But hey, if you're out there and watching it, welcome. If you're probably more likely watching it on the replay, welcome as well. Um, just some housekeeping before we get started. Um, this is our movie club, but we actually have two monthly and one quarterly multimedia club. I announced these on the first, and since today is the first, I actually already announced our next picks. So I put them on the slide instead of the usual ones. We have a monthly movie club, which for the month of July, we're going to be watching Millennium Actress. For our monthly listening club, we're going to be listening to Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. And then our quarterly book club is also meeting at the end of July, and we're reading Werner Herzog's memoir, which I have not started. So I need to get on that, but I am looking forward to the audiobook because he narrates it himself, which I love any memoir that's read by the author, but when it's Werner Herzog, that's something special.
It's very German.
If you do happen to be watching us live, you can join our discussion by commenting. We do see that live. You can watch us on Facebook in our group for Dragonfly Arts. It's kind of a weird segue because if you're watching this, you're already watching on either YouTube or Facebook, but I really needed to put the link up, so I'm doing my best. I am quite tired. I apologize. We have a lot of things that happen in this group, not just these multimedia clubs. We also do meetups. We have weekly calls for feedback on people's artwork, as well as creative discussions and a lot of other things. It's an entire community. We have people posting every day to either show off their art or to give updates about things in the artist community. It's a good group of people, and you can go there to join us. We also have a Patreon, which at the moment does not have any sort of perks or anything. It's just a place where you can give us money if you like what we do, so that you can support us. You can support us for as little as $2 a month. Currently, everything that we do is free, so you don't have to do it to get extra things. We are looking into doing that, though.
TBD.
TBD. If you are watching this on the replay, I still get notifications when people leave comments, and I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. I am a huge fan of this movie, and I'm interested in everybody's thoughts on it. So for this month, we watched 1917, which, it's a World War I movie, which when I was looking it up, I realized how few World War I movies there are.
Really?
Yeah, there's not a lot, and as Ryan told me earlier today, it's kind of a boring war in terms of like drama. Like it's all made up. Like nobody moved any. Like the war was fought over a very small placement, and nobody wanted to be in it. It was
World War
war
II,
for the sake
we
of
fought
war.
Nazis, and that was good
Yeah.
versus evil. Very clear cut lines.
Yeah.
World War One, some duke somewhere died, and so now an Australian guy has to go fight in Austria.
Yeah.
It's confusing.
It mostly just trenches.
Yeah, trench warfare is not exciting.
But this movie is particularly good. It's I remember seeing it in theaters, when it came out, and it was immediately like the best movie that I saw that year.
Yeah, this came out in 2019.
Yeah, I think
Correct.
2019.
Yeah.
Had you seen it before, Beckett?
No, I hadn't.
What'd you
And
think?
I love war movies generally. So, and this one is so unique. Like, I just was entranced the entire time. It was amazing.
It's a beautiful movie. I think when it comes to like the World War One movies specifically, like it's almost like a character piece, because like there's this one where you are following like two guys as they're trying to deliver a message to stop a battalion from walking into a trap, and it's just their journey along the way. But I also think about like All Quiet on the Western Front, where you're following kids and it's more about kids in war.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like one other World War One movie that I know. And
Dunkirk came out, I think, a little bit before this as well, which was, I think, I didn't see Dunkirk, but
Dunkirk was awesome.
Yeah.
If you liked this movie, you'll probably also like Dunkirk. It is also very, very pretty, and also very much a series of character pieces.
Yeah, it was 2017.
But that was World War II.
Was what was the one about the U-boat? Was that was World War One, right? U-571 or something?
No, I think U-boats were World War II.
Yeah, I think U-boats were World War II.
World War One was the fun one where you got horses and tanks in the same battlefield.
Thank you for saying that. War Horse is the only other World War One movie that I can think about off the top of my head.
Ah, yes, War Horse.
Also a very good movie.
Yeah. I didn't see War Horse. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, this movie was a treat. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. But I didn't know anything about it before. I obviously assumed that it was about World War One, but that was all that I knew.
Yeah, and Roger Deakins, again, is maybe one of the best cinematographers in recent memory. Like, I can't think of. I mean, he won. Was it what they won? Best cinematography on this one, as well as best special effects. Which again, we should probably mention. I don't know if you noticed, it was all one shot, like one continuous follow.
Oh yes, I definitely noticed.
But an absolute, like, just a technical standpoint, incredibly impressive.
Yeah, very convincing.
But Deakins tends to shoot all natural lighting, and it looked very like grounded, right? There was the only surreal moments, and probably one of my favorite was the him wandering through the French village that was lit by flares as they go up, and like the shadows.
That was really cool.
Absolutely one of my favorite shots. I think that this was a very pretty movie, and I actually it interested me as I was looking at some other reviews people had, and a lot of critics didn't like the movie. I think Roger Ebert's gave it a 2.5 out of 5 because they felt that it looked so good, we never got it. It was more about that than it was the character, right? It was just a guy and his friend crossing, no man's land and heading into, dangerous territory. But we didn't get a lot of character growth or anything. It was more just.
I mean, there was a character arc. I can't say that I agree with Roger Ebert on much, but because at the beginning he starts out, not wanting to go and just being kind of dragged along for the ride, and then he ends up being, the hero who made it, and kind of getting over or pushing through his fear, rather.
Oh, for sure. Oh, go ahead.
I think that there isn't a character arc, and I think that's the point. He's a guy that's doing a thing because he has to do it. It was a nothing war that nobody wanted to be in, including him. It starts the same way it ends, with like him just sitting down at a tree.
Mm.
Like it's like fully cyclical. There's not character growth because there's not a character arc, because it's a thing that shouldn't have happened in the first place. It's a dude just following orders and things happening along the way because it's a war. That's my personal opinion. I would also say that I agree that there's not a character arc. I still think it's a character piece, but I think there not being a character arc is a part of the piece.
But I think if you compared to this, like to All Quiet on the Western Front, where I feel like you get to know those characters and you literally start as he's a kid, so excited to, not to change the subject, but the main character of All Quiet was so like, as he heard a propaganda in high school and it made him all the honor you get for going to war, and then he gets there and just the tragedy of that and the tragedy of the war was somewhat undercut by the beauty of the film, right? Like, because in 1917 we get he cuts his hand on barbed wire and literally puts his hand in a corpse, right? Pretty early on, and he's wading through like a puddle of bodies and rat-infested trenches. But then it's still French, beautiful countryside, lit well, and like even the commanders being lit by like a single source in the middle of the room was still kind of beautiful. So did that undercut the horrors of war with the beauty of nature, I guess? And maybe that's what they were going for too. I don't know.
Just to continue the comparison between this and All Quiet on the Western Front, which if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. I think it's been remade multiple times.
Yeah, I've only seen the most recent one.
Yeah.
I've only seen the original.
Yeah, it's an important piece of anti-war. Like it's very much the lesson of anti-war. But at least for the newest one, All Quiet on the Western Front, because Ryan and I watched that together. I don't know, early this year, maybe late last year.
Yeah. Well, it was 2022.
Yeah.
So probably last year.
Also very, very pretty. Absolutely gorgeous. A lot of like long-standing shots on the beautiful French countryside, but it definitely, I think, because it deals with children, hits a lot harder and definitely has the feeling of, the terrors of war. Whereas I think that 1917 is more, you do what you have to do. If that makes sense.
I just kept thinking when I was watching this movie about Battlefield 1. Because watching this movie felt like playing a video game. Like, it was very pretty, and all the shots were like super. I mean, despite the dirtiness of the war and the dirt and the trenches and the mud and dead bodies and things like that, it was very clean looking.
Right. Funny you say that. That was actually part of the Roger Ebert, and again, I don't think it was written by him for obvious reasons. But on the RogerEbert.com website, the review was it felt like you were watching a video game and not in a movie, because you were just kind of always behind them and just following a story and not they didn't interact. That's not necessarily true, but that's kind of what the review was saying.
Yeah, I get that. At the same time, I feel like it added it added to the suspense in some cases where, like, because you are following the main character, you're not necessarily like seeing what he's seeing right away. So you're just kind of seeing his horror at what's coming, and you're like, oh God, what is it? Until the reveal. Like, that's how I felt with him wading across the bodies. It was like, oh my God, like that's not what I expected at all.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I don't know if I said, I actually really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. Again, just even the technical aspects and like you said, gorgeous film, well acted. Everyone, it was They had some cameos from I think Cumberbatch was in there for a bit.
Yeah, I have like a
Oh, there you
list
go. Yeah.
of like the cast, and I think it's really interesting because we're following George McKay and Dean Charles Chapman are like the two lead characters. Like those are the two guys, but Dean Charles Chapman is like so far down the cast list
Well, because he's
because of
not
like because of how many big names there are.
Yeah.
also
Well-
because if you don't, if you're not already aware, these conversations always contain spoilers. So if you haven't seen a movie yet, go watch it. But because Dean Charles Chapman's character dies like in the first 10 minutes, so he's not really in.
I
the
didn't
movie
think it
for
was
very
the
long.
first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
It
he
felt
gets
It was like he makes
stabbed
it like
by
halfway.
he gets stabbed by the German pilot, right? They say they
Yeah.
pulled the pilot
Yeah.
out of the plane and saved his life, and in turn,
Yeah.
his kindness got him killed.
Well, I mean, and looking at it from the other perspective, in a war, is it kindness? Because would you rather, fight for your life against the enemy combatants, or would you rather be tortured in a POW camp?
This might be controversial. I think if you're alive, there's a chance. If you're dead, I'd rather survive and
Well,
hope.
you are not German, my friend.
It's true.
He's
And
not.
also, it's hard to say if they were in no man's land, they could have gone separate ways. I just think again back to All Quiet that there's a whole thing where the guy's fighting a French. All Quiet is from I think the German perspective, and so so he's fighting a French guy, and so really just heart wrenching scene of them in the Trent in a crater, just towards the end. Oh, sorry. I know it's not the movie we're talking about, but
And in War Horse, the horse gets stuck in between no man's land, and the French and Germans, or the English and the Germans, fight together so that they can save the horse.
is that a true story? Like, is this War Horse the movie based on a?
I imagine it's based on a series of like stories. Most World War One movies are based on like actual accounts. 1917 is based on stories that Sam Mendes heard from his grandfather.
Yes.
So it is based on a series of stories that his grandfather told him about his service in World War One.
Yeah, there was also a lot of because I studied like the Weimar Republic and the post-war era of Germany. That's part of my minor study when I was in college, and there was a lot of propaganda on the German side that if you get captured, you will die in agony, being tortured in a POW camp. So that's kind of why, like, there was a reputation of the German soldiers being like absolutely brutal for no reason. Like, as the example of the pilot who crashed and then they save his life, and in turn he kills one of them. Like, in the pilot's mind, he's probably thinking, well, I don't want to be tortured to death in agony in a British camp. I'm just going to try to take out who I can before they kill me. Because of the propaganda on the German side that was like, the British are brutal and they will tear you apart. And
war is hell.
Yeah.
Having this discussion makes me want to like pick two movies at some point and then be like a comparison between the two.
Ooh, like a battle of the best of the best.
Because talking about this movie, I constantly am going back to every other World War One movie that I've seen, which is a weird thing that doesn't happen with me with World War II movies. It's just like World War One movies. I just compare them all together, and their experience almost gets jumbled together. I think we briefly already discussed this, but I did want to ask what everybody's favorite scenes were.
I think I already said it. Mine is the flares and the ruins of the French city, of just the long shadows, just absolutely beautiful and just surreal and dreamlike.
That part was particularly amazing, and then the music cues that go with that, just it makes it feel like a dream.
Mm-hmm.
I am partial to the poor wayfaring stranger scene where he just kind of comes across a group of soldiers that are waiting in the woods.
Hmm.
And there's just one guy singing.
I don't remember
And
that.
it's also like a weird like thing where it's like a bunch of trees, but like nothing else surrounding it. Like it's like
Yeah.
a bunch of trees in the middle of like a field.
Yeah.
If I remember.
Yeah, I think that some of the, like I had commented on before about like the reveals of, we see what he sees after the fact and we kind of get his reaction to it first. I really liked the reveal of the French town being in ruins, and like you're kind of stumbling upon this without any context as you're following him. Oh, here's a field of cherry trees that's been chopped down. Oh, here's a house that's been burned. Like just, and then one thing after another, leading ultimately to when he makes it to the end of the river and they had killed all the town inhabitants and thrown them down the river. It's just like all these pieces coming together. I really think that was beautifully done.
Atmospheric storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah, for sure. This movie is very, very much about that.
I mean, for the most part, it's just a dude. So there's not a lot of dialogue.
Yeah. Just a dude trying to sneak. So a lot of silence.
Yeah.
It's almost jarring when he has conversations. Like he sits down with the French woman who has the baby, and like when she talks, like it's almost very loud. It's also
Right.
why probably I like the singing scene, is it's just like a sudden extra source, like a different voice suddenly.
Hmm. Yeah,
After-
it's almost ethereal at that point because you're not really. Oh, that's right. There are other people in this world. I
I
also think
very
it's.
no, you go.
I just think it's funny that on some of the promotional posters, it has a bunch of the all-star cast on it, and all of them are in it for like 5 minutes. Like Benedict Cumberbatch says like 2 lines.
That's just how it is. You get I'm trying to remember, but there was a whole thing about when they sign on to a movie, there's contracts for when they appear on the poster, like where their name is, top billing there, when it comes in the movie, where I can only imagine the nightmare of trying to organize cameos by all these characters with very little screen time.
Right.
But I was going to say Colin Firth, I did not recognize at all. And I was very surprised to find out that was him.
Really? I knew it was him, but I was like, oh God, I didn't realize he was in this movie. That's crazy.
Yeah,
so I was trying to figure it out for a second and being, is that that is Colin Firth. Crazy.
Yeah, I was, again, I think he did everyone did a great job. But yeah, I was trying to think, they also won for best sound design, I think, too.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was best sound. I meant to look it up.
Okay, so they won best cinematography, best sound mixing, and best visual effects, which again, were borderline seamless. I watched a little behind the scenes on it, on just how they did all the match cuts, and like very clever edit points.
The like convoy scene was incredible the way that was done. I was thinking I was like, is this one continuous shot the whole time? Because if so, that's like technical mastery of, oh, we have to time this exactly here and this person enters here and then the camera has to move. Like there have to be cuts in there that are blended together.
Yeah, I would recommend. There's some good behind the scenes, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. They just do whole like set replacements for they turn a corner, right, and it's a completely different part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. This is the first film shot on the Alexa Mini LF, to the point where it wasn't even, it was a prototype. It wasn't out yet when they shot the movie.
Interesting.
They gave Deakins, they're like, take it. We'll get you more. It was shot on 3 lenses, which is somewhat interesting. I think it was I don't know where I saw it, but it was something like a 30, a 40, and a 47 for the whole movie.
before we move too much off topic, because you were saying like with the cuts and everything, like everything would have to be intensely choreographed. It's like a mix of the two. I know from watching the behind the scenes that they actually did like digi doubles to meld together scenes at times and meld together like different cuts. So there's surprisingly impressive because it feels like visual effects aren't a big part of it, like a movie like this outside of like the war scenes, but like the war scene itself was just like choreography.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
But
even
yeah,
that could all be done practically.
it was the film's climax when he's running through the film was practically done. It required extensive pre-production and took 2 days to shoot it.
Which,
They
yeah.
had over 500 extras as soldiers, and the crew members also had to dress as soldiers so that they could pass and get things moving throughout the scene.
Wow.
So the crew itself, in order to like get all of the choreography done, had to pass in front of the camera, and therefore they had to act as extras.
What was the budget for this film?
I have it on a slide here. The budget was 90 to 100 million, and it grossed 384 million.
Which is not a lot. I mean,
Yeah, I was
think
about to say, I was like, that's
in the industry, that's not a success.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, is this movie considered like niche or indie in any way? This isn't like a big studio production, is it?
I mean, it's DreamWorks and Anne Boleyn, which, you know.
Yeah. It was distributed by Universal. Honestly, I feel like I always have like this weird thing with movies that come out on Christmas where they're usually quite good, but it feels like a weird time to release a movie.
A lot of people go to movies on Christmas.
Yeah. Because a lot of good movies come out around that time. But like it's the time of year where you release movies because you want to get it in that year for the award season. But it's just, I don't know, it feels like a weird time because I also know a lot of people that go like on Christmas, but like not a lot during like the period as a whole. And I find that it's the time of the year where I end up alone in a movie theater more often than not.
Yeah, I can't say that. I know some families have a tradition of going to the movies on Christmas, but I've never done it.
Yeah, Christmas and Thanksgiving are very popular dates to release movies. This was a Christmas movie. It was released on Christmas Day in the United States. And I wonder if that also had something to do with its budget. I mean, movie theaters have also always like been in decline year after year. So I am curious about, because it's a phenomenal movie. So I wonder if it was a distribution thing or
maybe there's just not a lot of like hype for a World War I movie these days.
Yeah. So I'm on Rotten Tomatoes and I'm looking at, it's probably not great. It's probably a little toxic, but I'm reading through some of the reviews. A lot of people liked it, but this person here, decent story, didn't appreciate the fact that the two biggest names had combined screen time about 10 minutes.
Okay. I mean, we all forgot to overlook the most important thing. This was released on Christmas Day of 2019.
Yeah, well, you know, it was
COVID
before.
That's true.
Listen, COVID was just a little article in the back of the newspaper that we ignored at this point.
So that's also probably why I imagine it was released and then had a lot of accolades at the same time that everything was shutting down.
Yeah.
So it didn't get a lot of viewership.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I imagine people came to after the fact. I I'm sure I did see trailers for it. I see a lot of trailers.
Oh, the trailers were amazing because it was just
Trailers.
like
Oh, you're right.
that one
I
epic
remember that.
shot, and then
The word like 1917 like slowly imposes itself over the front of it.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
do
don't
remember
go to the movies a lot, so I didn't even know about this movie. Like, yeah, I had no idea it existed.
I go to the movies so often that there are trailers that I know by heart. I am so excited that The Quiet Place Day 1 came out, so I never have to see that trailer again.
Yeah. I mean, the worst was still the
Kingsman.
The Kingsman, yeah, the prequel. Oh my god, because we watched that trailer through COVID.
Yeah, it got
entirety
delayed repeatedly, so we saw it like every time we went to the movie theater for like 5 months.
Oh, I think 2 years. I think we were seeing that in 2019, and then the movie didn't come out until 2022 or 2021. Sorry.
Ryan and I go to the movie theaters a lot. It's why I run a movie club.
Yeah, but like when this was our pick for the month, I didn't even like know it. So it was a pleasant surprise.
Audiences who should be absorbed by the physical challenges inherent in the soldier's mission are likely to be thinking instead of the technical ones faced by the filmmakers. Ryan Gilbey of the New Statesman.
I mean, if you know things about filmmaking, I feel like most lay people out there who are just your casual moviegoer aren't going to be thinking about that.
Ooh,
they're probably not even going to notice that it's one continuous shot.
Jonathan Romney says, however, the well-intentioned spectacle 1917 feels fundamentally wrong and disrespectful to historical reality in its attempt to evoke it. Film Comment Magazine.
What does that mean?
I think the idea is it looked too good. Like if you're trying to talk about the historical reality of war,
a documentary.
I'm just telling you what Jonathan Romney of Film Comment Magazine said.
Jonathan Romney is an idiot. he said nothing.
Oh, here it is from Roger Ebert. It was Peter Sobocinski. Sitting through it is like watching someone else play a video game for 2 solid hours, and not an especially compelling one. 2.5.
So I'm reading some of like the historical accuracy complaints that people had, and they are bonkers. So the film was inspired by an actual the German withdrawal to new positions in the shorter and more easily defended Hindenburg line that took place between the 9th and the 20th of March, 1917. However, the entire situation in and of itself is fictional. That's all fine. The largest section of this statement is talking about how, contrary to the film's depiction, the number of black soldiers serving directly in the British Army itself was unknown but negligible. And then I am not joking, where like the whole thing is like this, and probably about this much of it is just talking about how it would mostly have been white people. But it did but other than that, people are like, no, they put a lot of detail in making sure that like things looked historically accurate. Like nobody's like, this is entirely true. Like I said, it's not a documentary. But they were trying to get the vibe and like the lifestyle, like the feelings and emotions and just that kind of thing done in a cinematic way. However, a military historian came back and was just like, look, their military tactics just suck. If this is the plan that they came up with, this is a plan that nobody would have come up with. It's just a bad plan. So, but yeah, does it matter? Like, does historical accuracy matter in a movie like this? Is it important?
Well, and I'd like to hear his alternative. How would you get the message across No Man's Land, dude?
I don't think that was the part of the plan that he was upset by. I think he was upset about where the battalion was actually attacking. He was upset about the thing they were going to stop because it should have been stopped in the first place because it was a bad idea.
Right, and that's why they had to send the two guys to tell them to call off the attack.
But in the movie, they want him to call it off because they say it's a trap.
Right.
They wanted to push it in because the Germans were.
Oh, and so he's saying, "Oh, well, it never would have happened anyway."
Yeah, they said their initial plan before the trap was just a bad plan.
Okay, well,
yeah,
whatever.
I
He
guess,
can write his own movie about the.
It made no sense.
Yeah,
The film
Jeremy
depicts
Banning.
battalions
Where's
9
your
miles.
movie?
Yeah, write your own movie, dude, or else shut up.
No, I kind of like that as a thing of just like, yeah, no, there's a lot of great historical accuracies in it, but the plan itself was really dumb. is a standpoint I can appreciate.
Yeah.
It's a movie. It's a movie.
I had a conversation with my dad yesterday where he watched, I don't even remember what movie he watched. It's a newer movie with Jessica Alba in it. But my dad's a military guy. He was like Department of Defense for a really long time and like knows how those things work. And he was so upset by this movie because he said he couldn't suspend his disbelief over certain aspects of it because it comes from his background. And then he proceeded to state the dumbest reasons I've ever heard anybody say for like inaccuracies.
Was it trigger warning?
Yes, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't look very accurate.
I was like, well, one, did you go into this movie thinking that it was going to be accurate? It feels dumb. If you were doing it accurately, it's not going to be fun. Nobody goes to the movies to watch somebody do dishes, but we all have to do dishes.
Right.
Like,
accuracy is not always the best thing for a cinema production.
but like, what level of accuracy is important for it? Like, how much of it can you throw into disbelief? Like, this movie didn't bother me, but I don't know a lot about World War I in the first place. So, but at the same time, I'm not expecting to come out of this movie with a large amount of knowledge on World War I either. Like, I'm not watching it to learn about World War I. I'm watching it to experience a story. So, like, what level of historical accuracy really matters?
Right.
I just find that whenever somebody's like, yeah, I didn't like the movie because of all of its historical accuracies, and then they start stating them, usually I'm like, that's dumb. Why do you care so much about the number of black people in this movie, man?
I can guess why.
Just a weird side rant that I think I started with having a question and then I ranted my way through it, and now I don't have a question anymore.
Okay, cool. It's interesting. So I'm looking at reviews for All Quiet on the Western Front, which again was generally reviewed better, and there are a lot more positive reviews. But it's interesting because a lot of the same ones are All Quiet skimps on the human drama. As a result, high stakes moments fall flat. So it's very similar. Like, there's not enough character growth moments. Or as a filmmaker who wants to bring us close to war, but the horror in All Quiet on the Western Front is in your face and also rather tidy in presentation. Maybe it's why it feels numbing. See, that was Owen Gleibelman from Variety. I disagree with that.
Does he have a list of movies that he thinks were good?
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah,
boy.
I don't have a lot more to say on this movie, if I'm being completely honest, but I do want to say that if you enjoyed this movie, I would highly suggest checking out Dunkirk as well as All Quiet on the Western Front. Dunkirk has like the same cinematic vibes, but it's actually World War II. All Quiet on the Western Front is a World War I movie, anti-war from the German perspective, and very good and very upsetting.
Yeah, I went from watching this movie to somebody recommending me, oh, if you liked 1917, then you should watch Covenant. Yeah, a completely different kind of vibe. So then I watched it and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just totally not in the same realm at all. And I can't say that I appreciate. I don't know who the cinematographer was, but there were a lot of cinematography choices in that movie that I was comparing to this movie mistakenly that really kind of ruined it for me a bit.
It's
Weird.
a Guy Ritchie movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
No, my suggestions are Dunkirk and All Quiet on the Western Front. If you enjoyed this movie, War Horse is also a good movie, but I'm not going to add it into the list. I think that Dunkirk and All Quiet on the Western Front are both very, very great movies. When I say All Quiet on the Western Front, I am talking about the newest version of it. I have seen one of the older versions, and I don't know if it's the oldest one or if it's the one that came in the middle. It's been remade so many times. But yeah, I think it's just interesting how few World War One movies there are, and how many World War II movies there are.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking like it's not a very action-y war that is good to translate to like an action movie, you know?
Right.
Like it was a lot of guys sitting in trenches and
Yeah, but you got
bombs going off.
flamethrowers. This is the first like aerial combat. You started seeing that. I mean, I think in World War One, you got like hot air balloon. Like that's how they scouted.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you played Battlefield 1, there is a lot of stuff that could be more action like
Battlefield One, I don't think the Zeppelin quite had as much impact as that game made it seem. But I could be wrong.
It is a fun game and made me think a little bit differently about how the war was fought and especially where the war was fought. Like there was a lot more. It wasn't just in France. It was a world war and it was all over the place.
So it's funny for me because I take these screenshots and I'm always like, why did I click on Lee Smith? And it turns out Lee Smith also edited The Dark Knight.
Oh.
Very
So
nice.
that is our connection between those two movies, I guess.
Sorry, I'm just going through Owen Gleiberman's favorite films. It's not sort of he really 100% Liza, a truly terrific, absolute true story. The Liza Minnelli
Interesting
documentary, 100%.
Wow.
This is me going off on a different tangent, and I feel bad because this is such a phenomenal movie, but it is like one of those movies where I don't have like a lot of discussion points beyond praising it. Like I wanted people to see it. Interestingly, it was not my first movie choice this month, but my initial choice I thought it got kicked off of streaming and was a little bit upset when I found out that Netflix picked it up the day before. But I really wanted to watch this movie. I really wanted to share it with anybody who hadn't seen it. I was pretty sure that everybody had already seen it. So I'm really glad to hear that you didn't know about it before going into it. And I was able to introduce it to you. I'm on Letterboxd. And this is related to what Ryan's doing now, not this movie. Whenever somebody really writes a really bad review for a movie that I love, I 100% stalk them and I'm like, well, what do you rate well? Like, what do you think is a good movie?
That'll say a lot about
I don't think you finished your thought. Godzilla -1, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. It was the movie that we were going to do.
Yes.
It has a 98,
World War II.
World War II. It has a 98% certified fresh. There is not a negative 100% critic review.
If you haven't watched Godzilla -1, it is currently on Netflix and you should absolutely watch it. It felt a little weird to pick it after picking this movie and I'm not sure how long. I don't know if I'm going to pick it in the future at all, but it is a fantastic movie, and I think everybody should watch it.
What did your folks think of it? Did you ever get a review from them?
The review I got from my parents was they liked it more than they thought they were going to.
Perfect.
But they also watched it dubbed.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Didn't they also watch Shogun dubbed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have
Godzilla
much else
Minus
to
One
say.
is in Japan. It's in Japanese, so
Yeah.
watch it with subtitles. Don't watch the dub. I mean, I don't know what the dub is, but I've never heard the dub. I'm kind of curious.
Some dubs are good, but it's tougher to do with live action.
Subs are better than dubs.
Some dubs are good.
I think that especially for things that came from Japanese specifically, there is so much context in just tonality that gets missed in dubs.
Yes and no. The creator of Cowboy Bebop, it still holds that you should watch the English dub because he thinks it's better than the Japanese version.
Okay, I'll give him that. Actually, the Cowboy Bebop dub is quite good.
I think I only watched
just
it dubbed because I watched it
on Cartoon Network.
On Cartoon Network.
Yeah. Well, I have the DVDs if you want to watch it.
Well, back to the topic at hand. I don't have much else to say about this movie either, except that I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, fantastic film. Should we talk about the just last like little bits of that that running scene at the end? I think you said they choreographed it for 2 days, but I guess or they choreographed it for however long, but then they had to do take after take of him running 300 meters over and over again. And there's a part of it where he runs into 2 people and then like stumbles and gets up and go. Of course, that wasn't choreographed. That was an accident, but it felt right, so it made it into the movie.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting because you would think with something like that, with all those practical effects and everything and all those extras, like you would have to get it done right on the very few first takes.
Sure, but filmmaking is like there's some rules of if you're on set, if you're an actor, don't eat the food, because if you eat the food, you now have to consistently eat the food all day for the full day as you get every angle of coverage. And boy, oh boy, as much as you like whatever you're eating, which makes me wonder how Brad Pitt does it, because his whole like thing is he always wants to do something with his hands, like eating. And anyway,
well, but in a movie like this, it's technically one shot, so it wouldn't matter for like continuity's sake.
Well, you say technically one shot. Again, they shot it many, many, many takes. That's
really surprising to me.
There's
having been in, that side of things, it's stuff like this with effects and all these extras and stuff. Usually they want to get it done in as few takes as possible.
Oh, of course.
Especially a movie that's supposed to be one continuous shot.
Agreed. I think
best shots
right.
Sure. Yeah.
You always do another one for safety. That was a perfect take. Let's go again. Sorry. That. Additionally, let's see what else I was going to say. There was a little. Oh, there was a cut. Part of the movie does cut to black at an hour and 6 minutes in.
Yeah,
as
he
gets knocked out.
unconscious.
And they did that because they needed a way to transition seamlessly from day to evening to dusk day to night. That way,
well, and it made sense to me because it's when he gets knocked unconscious. So since we're following him, we wouldn't get to see what he doesn't get to see.
But I think that technically Birdman was like a one continuous shot, like throughout. They would jump, like it was a little jarring. But again, so this technically isn't a one shot. Is all I'm saying. It's
True.
despite the technical aspects. But yeah.
I will still consider it a one shot. I mean, we watched 12 Angry Men, and that has a very impressive long shot at the start of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get that feeling at all through this, but it does help with like the continuity of just like, yeah, it's just a guy doing what he has to do. And I think having it be like a continuous shot just following him just really exacerbated that feeling for me. I didn't even know I had such a strong opinion about that, but then the first time I said it, I was like, ah, yes.
All right. So what was a better war movie, 1917 or Starship Troopers?
Apples and oranges, man.
All right.
Yeah, very different.
Different message too.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Is Starship Troopers, is it pro or con war? I don't know.
That is not the film we're talking about.
I absolutely want to watch Starship Troopers in the future.
We should. I've never actually seen the whole thing.
Oh, yeah? Oh, it's so
Um,
chaotic. It's so good.
but that's a little bit of a ways down the road, I think, because our next movie, is going to be Millennium Actress, which I'm looking forward to because
A very different film.
very different film. But I think we will end the stream for tonight, and we'll join again when we do talk about Millennium Actress.
Yes.
So, good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.